So without further ado, let me go ahead and bring on today's presenters, Troy and Vlad, and I'll let them introduce themselves. Hi guys, how are you doing?
Good. How are you? Thanks for having us. Appreciate it. Yeah, so thanks again, everybody. See a ton of people in the chat. Seems like it spans a bunch of different states. Always good to see. So I'm Troy Hollings, Senior Account Executive here at ConverSight, calling in from beautiful Indianapolis, Indiana. And very excited to talk about AI, Agentic AI, place this in kind of the larger conversation where everybody's talking about Claude and ChatGPT, and do we hook up that to our ERP system? And so, would love to try to, as much as we can, shed some light on all of this. And as is a ConverSight tradition that I forced Vlad to do, we're going to share a fun fact really quick. And so, I was between two fun facts. One is I live on a farm. I married a farm girl. We have 25 acres, 3 horses, 15 goats, and some chickens. And my secondary fun fact related to that is I'm currently covered in poison ivy because I live on said farm. So great to talk to you guys. We'll keep it efficient here. And so maybe I'll kick it over to my buddy Vlad.
Yeah, hi everybody. Always great to see such a turnout, and super excited to have everybody on the call. My name is Vlad Becker. I head up the supply chain solutions here at ConverSight, based out of Boston, Massachusetts. My fun fact, and I always struggle with this piece when Troy puts me on the spot, but I guess I will share that me and my wife started potty training our 11-month-old this week. Can't say it's been too fun, but it is a fun fact about me.
Yeah, if poison ivy and potty training is our fun facts, maybe we're just boring and old. But moving on. Okay, so we are going to have we're gonna do a bunch of stuff. We're gonna talk about a lot of things, but maybe we wanted to start with a poll question. Courtney should be firing that. So, how are you using AI at work right now? And you should see that coming through, and we'll give it a second to come in.
Yeah, so that should be coming in on the right-hand side of your screen. I'm seeing some answers now. So we've got a few options there. You're not using it at all. Occasionally, you're using some basic features, or you're one of those people that have just picked it up and ran with it, and you are using AI all day, every day. I think, guys, I think this is looking probably like you might expect. We're pretty across the board here. I will say the clear leader is looking like occasionally using basic things like ChatGPT. So I'm going to put this up there for everyone to see, but we're a bit across the board.
Yeah, let's maybe give it 10 more seconds, and then we'll get this moving here.
Yes, and then Vlad and I will pop off and let you take it away, Troy. So I think we'll keep going on, and
Okay,
let
yeah.
us know if you haven't had a
Yeah,
chance to
interesting.
poll yet.
So it sounds like the majority of people are, maybe, I think we all remember in 2023 when ChatGPT really blew up. And so I think people started using that. It seems like the majority of folks have probably decently comfortable with ChatGPT, maybe they're paying for ChatGPT Premium, but have heard about things like Agentic AI, have heard about things like, Claude. And so we wanted just to kind of talk through a couple of these things. I'm just going to go back to the first slide for a second, because all of this, we want to kind of give you the wave tops of what ConverSight is in the context of that larger conversation. And so at a high level ConverSight, we are a platform, and really we're merging BI, AI, and supply chain. Or another way that we sometimes think about it is when you work with ConverSight, you're really hiring an AI employee that can give you insights, recommendations, and then even in certain cases, which we'll kind of talk through, take action on your behalf. And I shared that to just set a little bit of this context here, which is we've probably all been hearing more and more about how there's going to be these AI agents, and what does that mean, and people's jobs going to be replaced. And so when we think about AI broadly, but agentic AI specifically, I think one of the misconceptions that we feel is that everybody says AI, but AI is not just one thing. On the left side, on kind of that level one, which it sounds like the majority of folks have decently experienced at, that's really using AI like an assistant. This is your chatbots, this is your chat GPT, and that's maybe for quick ad hoc tasks, massively helpful if you need to be able to quickly get information. But then as we move up that kind of lens, the second level is, okay, now we're actually using AI to automate things. It's a little bit more agentic. The AI is going out and doing something. Maybe it's looking at your business on a daily basis and giving you an executive pulse. Maybe it's automating a workflow. And that's kind of the second level that we're seeing. As we again move up, we think about AI as a co-pilot. So maybe you're doing a task, and we'll share like our demand forecasting, for example. Maybe you're in there trying to do your demand forecast, trying to wrangle your replenishment. What should we order? Okay, well now can we integrate AI in there as a co-pilot? Can we have really somebody come alongside you that is a smart supply chain co-pilot and help you with that? And then finally, as we get to that fourth level, we're seeing AI in certain areas really being like your workforce. And I think I use Claude every day. I use ChatGPT every day. Again, not saying anything really negative or even really commenting specifically about any tools, but I think the key point that we just wanted to make is at the bottom footer there is when you really go and are trying to use AI in the real world to solve real problems, it's not just one of these. It's not, oh, let me just plug in a chatbot to this. It's all four of these levels for specific reasons and specific times as you try to integrate AI into your overall workflow. And so those are some of the things that we are going to kind of talk through. But as we're getting maybe from the high level to a little bit deeper, let's just talk about ConverSight for a second. And so one of the differences and one of the things that when we're working with customers at ConverSight, what this slide's basically saying is we recognize that the world is not set up where you have all your data in one system and that's the one system to rule them all. We find a lot of times you have people have their data in Acumatica, they have a CRM data, maybe they've got some like if we're talking about replenishment, maybe they've got the master replenishment Excel sheets. And so we're able to pull all of that into our data lake, into our platform, and use some of the functionality that we'll show you on this webinar today. And I think that's kind of on the philosophical, but it kind of comes back to, it's like, I drive a car. I don't know anything about how the engine works. And I theoretically really don't need to know anything about how the engine works because I just care that the car solves my problem, which is get me to work, get me to the grocery store, that type of thing. And so I think the analogy there is apt because for us, we've been around for 7-8 years. We have 700 plus customers, and we've really kind of spanned all of those pillars of AI. But when it comes to deploying AI in your business, I think what we're finding is it's not, we don't necessarily lead with the AI. It's more of what is the problem that we're solving. And so this is what Vlad is going to walk us through when we share the demo and we kind of talk through what ConverSight is. But broadly, and I'll paint in broad brushes, and then we can get specific as we give the demo. We're really seeing in the market a couple specific problem areas where we're having a ton of success deploying AI in all of those different forms, from a quick chat interface to answer questions all the way to more agentically, almost like you've hired a worker. Top row, all things supply chain. So, maybe starting from the demand planning. So this is, maybe you're a distributor, you've got 2,000 SKUs. You need to figure out, okay, what are my fastest moving SKUs? How do I keep it so I have enough inventory that I'm always in stock with those? But also, maybe my long tail SKUs, I don't want to keep too much inventory because I'm tying up working capital. So that's a great use case for AI in a variety of ways where, what are people really bad at? Well, they're really bad at looking through tons and tons and tons of fields and tables and inputs and trying to identify patterns. That's one of the things that AI is super good at. And so that's an area that's a problem in the market that we just see as a great use case for AI, and we'll show you. If we go to the supply chain visibility, for example, it's it's really hard to visualize all of the different things that are going on inside of your supply chain. What orders do we have coming in? What have we purchased? When's it going to be here? Do we need to order more based on supplier lead times? That type of thing. And again, kind of, I've heard it described that AI is really good at what's called the messy inbox problem. So people are really bad at sitting there and imagine, it's kind of a metaphor, but imagine you have this inbox and there's tons and tons of emails coming in, and there's different tasks and emails threads and attachments, and that's something that it's just really challenging for somebody to kind of get their arms around all those inputs. So your supply chain often similar. And then if we go on to the right side, supply planning, that's okay, given all of that, given our inventory, given committed orders, given everything, what should we actually buy so that we don't have stockouts, but we also don't have too much excess inventory? So we'll spend a good portion of time on that. If we go down to that second level, sales and finance analytics, it's amazing how still even sometimes it's just really hard to get good information about revenue, about profitability. I mean, I remember I had a customer that literally was just trying to pull profitability margin by industry, customer, part, and was forced to export to Excel and spend tons of time manually doing that. So we have a kind of solution that can solve those types of issues. And then if we have time, we'll talk through quickly some of our construction analytics. I think I'm going to move it quicker to Vlad, but I think the last thing I'll just say is what this slide's really saying is, there's application sprawl. It seems like you need 5, 6, 7, 10 different tools to really solve a core business problem like replenishment, we'll say. And our vision, what we're really trying to do is just be that one tool. So you don't need, a NetStock, a Tableau, a data lake, plus you're pulling data from Acumatica GIs. You can just plug in ConverSight and all of that will work. So I think that's all I'm going to say. I keep saying that's all I'm going to say. I'll say one more thing. So again, all of this needs to be graphed also against business ROI. And so throughout all this, we're going to just be coming back to, okay, how does this save money or make you more revenue? And sometimes when ChatGPT came out first, I figured out that you could ask it to calculate things in the unit of measure of elephants. So I said, hey, calculate how far it is from Indianapolis to Tokyo in the unit of measure of elephants. Okay, that's an arcane thing. Who cares about that? But the principle is it's easy to get AI to do fun party tricks. It's hard to get AI to actually have real business value. And that's what we're going to try to talk about today. And so now if we look at like that, just that first slide, $11 million in inventory saved. Well, how could AI help with that? Well, it helped, like I talked about before, where you're keeping more of those A-tier inventory items. You're selling more of those. You're not stocking out. There's not opportunity cost. But then that long tail, you're not keeping nearly as much of that other maybe B, C tier inventory. So we'll talk through a lot of these things, but I think we're always trying to come back to, okay, how does this actually matter? Who cares in my real business? So I think with that, Vlad, maybe we kick off the poll and then kick it over to you to give a demo.
Yeah, sounds great.
Yeah, so everyone out there in the audience, the second poll is up. And before we start showing you some capabilities, we want to know, what are you most excited about for Agentic AI? So we've already got some answers coming in. So I'm going to put this up on stage so everyone can see it live. Looks like the clear lead right now is that demand and supply chain forecasting.
Interesting.
And then
yeah,
we've got
still coming in. Yeah,
and then I'd say I don't know if you guys can see that last one there, but we've got a tie right now between automation with AI agents and financial cash flow monitoring. Whew. Tongue twister there, but we're a bit across the board there, but definitely leading in that demand and supply chain.
Well, great, because we were planning on covering primarily demand and supply forecasting with some financial cash flow monitoring, and then hitting on automation with AI agents. So couldn't have planned it better.
Yeah, we know our audience, it seems like.
Right. Sounds good. Well, with that, maybe Vlad, I will kick it to you and start showing us the tool and illustrating some of those principles that I just outlined.
Yeah, absolutely. And Troy, you did a great job outlining those 4 pillars of AI. And what I'm really excited to show the group here is how ConverSight weaves in those 4 pillars of AI into everyday workflows. Um, and that's really done by the AI agent Athena. So you're going to hear that word a lot today. And Athena is really acting as that assistant, automation tool, co-pilot, and a full-time employee for us in our work streams when we're talking about demand and supply chain forecasting. So when we start off the journey on ConverSight, it really begins on this insights page. And this is really where we're seeing that assistant and automation agent really shine, right? This is where we're pulling in your ERP data on a daily basis. And the AI is actually analyzing all those thousands and thousands and tens of thousands of data points to find any sort of exception, trend, or anomalies in that business data, right? So we're looking at things when it comes to your supply chain data and operational data. We're looking at things like on time and in full percentages are potentially dropping off, or we're seeing revenue potentially dip from last year, and what is potentially driving that. So what Athena is really doing is bubbling up that information in an automated fashion that's allowing the user and the persona that's really within the platform to spot what are those things that I need to focus on in my day to day, right? So she's acting as that assistant who in the morning is really telling you what should you be focusing on, what are the priorities within your business that need to be really tackled first and foremost, right? If we're seeing demand spikes, if we're seeing potential dips in our supply projections, how do we act on that, and where are the problem areas? So I mentioned this is persona driven, right? So if you are a C-suite executive, if you're a buyer, or if you're in the warehouse fulfilling orders, these insights are going to be tailored to you, and it's going to really focus you in on what you care about in your day to day. Now, if we take a step further, right, when we're talking about Athena as an assistant and really a co-pilot in our day-to-day workflows, what comes next, right? What do I actually do with this information? Well, you might notice that down here on the bottom, we have a little widget. And this is where we can actually come in and start interacting with Athena around your business data. So, we saw information around what's going on with my revenue. We saw information around forecast levels. Perhaps I want to come in and actually ask Athena questions that help me further dive into some of those areas that need my focus today. So I can come in and simply use natural language to type in, what is the forecast quantity for the next 12 months? And let's show this by month. So instead of having to rely on disparate systems, Excel downloads, or technical teams to build out this reporting for us, we're really using the AI agent to go analyze those data points that are going to be relevant for the specific question I have, and bringing back the relevant information that I'm going to care about that's going to help me make my next decision. And we saw within seconds, Athena was able to deliver us that visual. Okay, it looks like, right, we're seeing some seasonality within our demand forecast, a little bit of a drop off in September here, but you might have noticed that she's also summarizing that information for us. So again, we're not any longer reliant on going in and actually diving into the data and exploring that ourselves. Athena's summarizing that for us. She's really taking the highlights, spoon feeding them to us, so that we now have talking points as we're going across the business, across different silos within the organization, and making sure everyone's on the same page when it comes to forecast, as an example. Now, perhaps we want to go a little bit further in, right? We're seeing a great view around our forecast data at a 30,000 foot view, but we probably want to drill a little bit further in, right? So let's have her break this down by item. So can you break this down by item? Now, again, I'm just using my keyboard. I'm using natural language to ask these questions. We also do have the ability to use voice. This comes really in handy because we do have a mobile app that folks do enjoy out in the field, and maybe they don't want to interact with their keyboard or desktop, right? They want to use their iPhone or Android device to ask questions of Athena. They certainly can do so as well. So now we've seen how Athena gives us a contextual breakdown by item around that forecast data. And we can further explore this, right? So throughout the journey here on ConverSight, you really have flexibility in deciding, how do I want to see this information, right? Maybe I want to see it as a flat file CS table. Maybe I want to see this information as a pivot table, or a variety of other visuals to choose from. You have flexibility in how you're going to be digesting this information. So here we've seen how Athena can give us that detail on the forecast data from a top level. We're getting down to the items that are really driving that forecast. But now, I want to actually dive in and see, how is that forecast made up? Well, we can actually go into our Launchpad and open up our demand forecasting app here at ConverSight. And what this forecasting app allows us to do is, again, take all of those tens of thousands different data points, transaction records spanning years back, and analyze any sort of historical trend that the system's going to pick up on there. What do I mean by that? Well, when we're talking about traditional forecasting tools, they're really using a simple linear regression model, or maybe a moving average model. But Athena, as an AI agent, takes it a little bit of a step further, right? So we're using a variety of different AI algorithms that are looking at things like seasonal spikes, potential dips in sales, right? Any sort of outlier orders. Do I potentially have stockout events that are driving a forecast dip, right? And she's taken all that information and given us a variety of statistical parameters that are going to be driving what that forecast is potentially going to look like for me. And you might have noticed that down here below, she's also summarizing her reasoning, right? Why did I land on a specific model? What's really driving that volume from a historical data standpoint, and really proving why she got to the results that she did, right? So she's really acting as that assistant and allowing you to utilize her in your day-to-day practice to really understand, right, why are we getting to the figures we're getting to, and what do I do with that next? Now, you might have noticed that within the screen, you can select a different model for the different items, and that's really happening for you, right? So as we're doing that analysis across the item data, Athena is deciding which algorithm is going to work best for that specific item, right? Every item has different trends, different periods of high selling frequency, right? So is it a more seasonal item? Is it a more steady item? And based on those different parameters, the system will actually suggest the ideal model to move forward with, to ensure that we're getting the highest accuracy rate possible. Now, from there, this is really where, up until now, we've kind of uncovered why did we get to the forecast that we did. On this screen, this is where the users are really augmented to take their tribal knowledge, what they know best about their business. Perhaps we have promotions coming down the line, right? AI is not going to be able to predict that, right? That's tribal knowledge you have about your business. So that's where you can actually come in and see, what did the AI suggest? And do I want to actually come in and adjust that forecast across a specific item, or maybe a certain period, or maybe I want to drive sales for a specific item that we haven't really allocated enough resources to. Do I want to plan for higher sales there? So we're able to take that and actually publish that forecast and operationalize it across the business. Now from here, right, what's going to be the next logical step? Okay, well, I have a forecast that's been provided to me, right? I've made my tweaks based on what I know about my business. But now, I'm going to be curious, do I have enough inventory to actually support the forecast? So let's ask Athena that question. So do I have enough inventory to forecast for the next 2 months?
And maybe while Vlad's doing that, just a quick comment just to illustrate kind of those four phases. If you think about and see, okay, we're deploying AI in a real world use case. Well, Vlad is seamlessly going back and forth between using Athena as a quick assistant to come in and ask an ad hoc question, and then when he's in there with the demand forecasting and Athena's in there reasoning, really using Athena like a co-pilot for his workflow. And so I think that's one of the it's easy to just have a chatbot plugged in, but to really say, okay, for this specific workflow, what type of AI should we be using? I think that's one of the core distinctions. So, but yeah, Vlad, I saw that was loading. Just wanted to quickly check.
Yeah, absolutely. And right, we're seeing how Athena's answered that question for us. So she's identifying items where we have a specific forecast quantity, but maybe we have a shortage in terms of inventory. Maybe equally important, we have a surplus, right? How do we mitigate potentially rising costs across our inventory based on potential dipping demand signals? So again, she's really summarizing and giving you the highlights and the actual lowlights. What is actually happening in your business that needs your attention based on the questions that you're asking. Now, throughout this process, right, it's great that we have the ability to really interact with that data, but we don't want to have to ask the same question over and over again. Well, anytime we ask a question, we can go ahead and actually pin it to a storyboard. And what storyboards are is nothing but a dashboard that allows you to really take all that data, all that information that we're curious about, and pin it so that it's consistently updated with any sort of new data that comes into play. So this is a really great place to come in, spot check performance. How is my forecast actually comparing to what's actually happened? Are there any potential dips that I need to be aware of within my forecast? And the system's constantly tracking those actuals and actually providing you with an analysis of what's potentially been undersold or oversold. This is critical when we're doing our supply plans, right? We need to understand, are there items that are overselling that we need to potentially buy more of in order to ensure that we're not in a position where we're stocked out? Are we underselling consistently? And are we potentially at risk for being oversaturated in certain areas? Do we potentially need to cancel some purchase orders or pause some inbound units in order to account for that, for those downtrending demand signals? And really, the key here is how do we take that information, bring it into the forefront, and be able to react to it quicker instead of being more reactive by having to manually analyze all those thousands of data points on a daily basis. So what do we do with that information go forward, right? We've seen how Athena can tie in our sales data into demand signals. We can see how she can start incorporating inventory trends, and are we potentially in a position where we're overstocked or understocked. Well, if we are in positions where we're understocked, what do we do with that next? And that's where our supply planning app comes into play. And on the supply planning app, Athena is analyzing all those different data sources and combining them into one view for us to start taking action off of. This is really where the co-pilot comes into play. So she's actually recommending what action do I need to take across my item mix in order to ensure that I'm not in a stockout position and I have that just-in-time delivery to meet customer service levels. So here we can see that Athena is breaking all those different items down, what's potentially at a critical stock out. I'm able to now come in, select all the different items I want to buy, and I see some additional really important information here. How much do I have on hand? Are there lead time trends I need to be aware of? what is my average daily demand for these items, right? Am I buying enough, or do I need to potentially adjust the recommendation based on, what I know about my business, and potentially that what we spoke about earlier, potentially allocating more resources to a promotion? Well, I can make all those decisions on the screen. And this is where we're taking that information and are able to really start acting on it, and making more informed replenishment decisions based on all those different data points that Athena has bubbled up to us. So once I go ahead and select the SKUs that I wanna actually buy this week, I can come in, like I said, making sort of additional adjustments. And once I feel good, I'm going to go ahead and create a purchase order in the ERP, and further have Athena act as that assistance that allows us to automate that process, not have to worry about the manual task of actually writing a PO and replicating all the work that she's done for us within the ConverSight platform. Now, up until this point, right, it's all about deciding, what do we reasonably expect to do in terms of sales volume? How do we act on that and make sure that we have the inventory mix to support those demand signals? Well, what happens when we're working with suppliers and we're actually waiting for these products to come in based on the POs that we've written? And that's where Athena comes into play as a workforce. So we have a supply assurance agent that Athena really helps us decide what vendors do I need to reach out to based on potential items that are at risk of being delayed, or potential units being short shipped. How do I take action on that? Right, so Athena identifies those supplier performance trends, right? Whether it's growing lead times, or promise dates are always fluid with a specific vendor and a specific item that I buy. And she's able to identify those problem areas and start proactively making decisions for us on who do I email or who do I call in order to reach out and make sure that we're getting that on-time delivery every single time. Now, the best part here is she's not just bubbling up that information to you, she's actually doing the action for you. So you can see how Athena can actually send emails on your behalf to suppliers if we're approaching a promise date, but we haven't yet received an advanced shipping notice from a vendor. She's going to actually go ahead and reach out to that vendor and saying, hey, are these products arriving when we expected? Are we getting all the units that we've anticipated? And then she's able to also escalate for us. If we haven't received a response to our email, let's go ahead and make a call. And Athena's going to actually go call that vendor, have a conversation with them, and then you're able to come in and actually see what was talked about, right? What did Athena and my vendor decide on? Are we now potentially having to plan for a 2 or 3 day delay on these units? And what was really decided on during that call? At that point, Athena will actually take that information, and once we follow the appropriate approval workflows, we'll actually write that information back into our ERP so that remains the single source of truth for your entire supply chain operation.
And maybe just one like real world example. It's kind of interesting. So we have a customer right now, a big global manufacturer. Their challenge is, obviously like every manufacturer, they have to order a bunch of raw materials. And if those don't show up on a certain time, production stops. And so what that kind of translates to is they have a lot of very highly paid supply assurance folks that a good portion of their job is calling their suppliers and saying, hey, did you get that PO? When's it going to show up? Can I get a discount because it's late? Can we negotiate? And two other wrinkles, since they're global, there's a language barrier, and then there's a time zone issue. And so they have this kind of bloated workforce where they have to be able to support calling in certain times, calling in certain languages. And so again, you're not saying this applies to everybody, but this customer is actually using Athena to make calls and emails in Portuguese to their suppliers over overnight hours. And so just a real world example of I think the hardest challenge is how do you actually have these agents integrated into a workflow besides just hooking it up with the MCP connector. So that's all I got. But take it away.
Absolutely. Now, I know we have about 8 minutes left. Do want to touch on some of those sales and finance analytics and use cases that I know the team is interested about. So from a finance analytics use case perspective, right, we have predefined modules and agents that are scouring, invoice records, GL accounts, and again, same idea is bubbling up any sort of problem areas. So for example, if we're looking at this revenue detail storyboard, we're seeing some really great information around revenue trends for the last 12 months, what's really driving that from a product and customer standpoint. And through these storyboards, we're actually able to come in and deploy AI narratives that really tell us the story about the data that's being digested here. So once this loads up, we're going to see a little AI narrative here that is going to tell us the story about the profitability trends that Athena is really analyzing. Right? There seems to be some margin decline. We're understanding where that's coming from, and we're now able to actually use that insight to drive further in and understand, right, where the potential problem areas. Is it a certain customer order? Is it a certain item that's really driving that margin erosion? Now, we're also pulling in a variety of AP and AR aging data, right? So this helps us start really understanding what is that potential cash inflow and outflow within our business. And we can start using Athena to understand what are the potential cash positions that I can reasonably anticipate based on my AR aging and AP aging trends across customers and vendors. And throughout this, we're also seeing that executive financial visibility that was really needed across the C-suite, right? So as we're analyzing the health of our business in real time, these storyboards and the Athena assistant is really bubbling up that information for our executives to say, right, what initiatives do we need to potentially tweak, and what teams do we need to reach out for to execute on those. So I know we have about 5 minutes left. Troy, do you think it makes sense to open it up for questions?
Yeah, I know we got a bunch of questions, and I don't want to not answer any of them. So maybe let's just rapid fire on a few of these. Maybe we'll get as far as we can, and then we can kind of close this out here. So first quick, easy one: is all functionality shown compatible with Sage 100? Yes. Okay. Let me get to a little bit harder one. So could you clarify the data source? Is it direct ERP access, curated data warehouse tables, data dump? Also would appreciate more detail on the specific data schema or inputs the AI moved. Basically, like, where's the data coming from? And maybe Vlad, you could just kind of talk through that quickly.
Yeah, so we have a pre-existing configuration or integrations with over 150 different systems, whether it's ERP data, WMS data, CRM data. When we're talking about Acumatica and Sage, those are really some of our core ERPs that we work with. And within those ERPs, we've established a data model and schema that is necessary to drive all this functionality. So, that really allows us, when we first integrate with your ERP, to bring in the data within days, stand up some of these workflows for you very quickly, and then from there we can configure and customize based on your unique business needs. So based on those pre-configured integrations, really allows quick time to value and ROI within the ConverSight platform.
Yeah, I think sounds good. Maybe we could. So I think we've got some other questions, but let's just go to the poll here, and then we'll close this out. So
yeah,
go ahead, Courtney.
Yeah, Troy, we've got some good questions still, so we've got time for them. But like Troy said, we went ahead and launched our final poll. just, asking based on what you've seen today, how can we help you, with the next step? Do you want to see, we did a quick preview of some of the features here, but there's much more to show you specific to your business, your use case, what you're most interested in. So we're happy to set that up. And we've got a great question we want to dive to in just a second, but I'll go ahead and pop this on stage. And I think, guys, I'll let you speak to this QR code, where it'll take you, the offer, all of that, and we'll pop back over to Q&A.
Yeah, I think it sounds great. So I'm going to go off script, but I cleared it with our team. So all good webinars obviously need to have an offer. And so, if you guys are sitting there and saying, man, I'm really curious about agentic AI, what should I do? I'm not sure what to start with. We're actually offering a 90-day pilot and 50% discount on the monthly price. And then at the end of 90 days, you can determine, is there value here? Is there not? And I think one of the hard things is there's this AI buzz everywhere. And so what we're really trying to do is for folks that kindly attended this webinar, if you want to almost try it out, pilot it, we'd love, or even just have a conversation, we'd love to just chat, say hey, and see if there might be a way we could be helpful. So QR code will take you to a meeting booking link. You'll have our contact info, but I really just want to say thanks everybody for joining. Maybe we'll flip back to the Q&A real quick and answer a couple more, and then we'll be at time. And thanks again, everybody, for joining.
Yeah, we've got a couple questions to get through. And if you don't want to deal with the QR code, that's not your thing, don't worry. Just let us know in the poll and we'll hook you up with all the same things. So whatever works best for you, QR code button at the top of your screen, we'll make sure we get you connected. So guys, the next question, I know it gets cut off on our end a little bit, but just so everyone out there in the audience can see it. They said, if you've made tweaks and changes to something based on what you know and context, does it get taught back to the AI or noted in the tool used for selecting algorithms? So I think, maybe asking if there's a learning aspect there.
Yep. Yeah, go ahead, bud. Yeah, you go.
Yeah, so any sort of changes or updates that make to the system, become persistent, and those remain within the data sphere that we've established here. And then, of course, you can start interacting with Athena around those changes that you've made and get contextual responses back based on those changes.
Yep, and I think it's one of those things where there's a compounding effect where as Athena starts learning your business, I mean, especially if you think about even like the demand forecasting, as you've been doing that for longer and longer, it's going to get more and more accurate. And so yes, and maybe if we can squeeze it in the last minute, can you explain how this compares to the anomaly detection within Acumatica? And so I think broad brush, anytime that you're getting outlier detection, you're getting insights, that's super helpful. I think a couple differences for us is one, we can pull data from a bunch of different places. So, you're not just limited to the data from Acumatica. And then the other is, we're not going to share the screen and go back, but attached to the insights, there's the abilities. So I can come in and I can tag Vlad, and I could say, hey, Vlad, when you get into the office, can you take a look at this? You can then take that into Athena and kind of riff on and talk about the insights. And so I think we look at it as it's a part of a larger platform as opposed to just kind of a one-off feature. But
yeah, and the last thing I'll add to that is, right, Acumatica anomaly detection is great at looking back and seeing what has happened in the past. Well, how do you take that and actually decide what to do next, right? And that's where Athena really comes into play to analyze those anomalies and actually suggest actions that you can take to mitigate what's happened within your business, right? Or find other revenue streams based on those anomalies.
And team, if you guys don't mind, we did have two more questions submitted. So if you don't mind staying on a couple extra minutes, we can get those answered. And then anyone that needs to jump can catch the recording. That sound good?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So I think we've got another one back on Sage 100. So just asking, regarding Sage 100, can you have it change all stock products in a product line for a particular customer at, say, a specific margin? Athena change all stock widgets to a 20% margin for, say, blank company. So just a little bit detail on that Sage 100 functionality.
Yeah, absolutely. When we're using Athena as a co-pilot, right, that's exactly what it's intended to do. How do we run simulations and scenarios across our product mix? So, if we're going to be anchoring to a 20% margin, right, does that mean that we're potentially finding opportunities to decrease cost, or are we raising our prices or lowering our prices to get to that 20% margin, right? So you're able to ask those questions of Athena, and she's gonna run simulations around how's that going to impact my profitability, my cash flow position down the line. What vendors are potentially going to be problem areas for us to achieve that margin threshold, right? And those are the kind of interactions you can start having with Athena as that co-pilot.
Great. And then last question before we fully wrap up is, does your model connect to Acumatica CRM? Can it do writes?
Well, I think what that's asking is, well, first of all, yes, we can connect to the Acumatica CRM, but I think the second part of that question is, can we write back to it? Yes, we do have write back functionality to Acumatica. We can write back purchase orders as we saw, but also if there's customer records or opportunity records that need write back, we're always exploring new options and enhancing those features within our toolkit. But yes, we can certainly do that.
Great, thanks, Vlad. So you had a couple more seconds here if you wanted to grab that QR code, get that exclusive discount on implementation through April 30th, check things out, see it from the perspective of exactly what you need for your business. And with that, we want to say a thank you. So thank you, Vlad, Troy, thank you, ConverSight, for this great session. I know I learned a lot. This was exciting to see some real AI capabilities in things like Sage and Acumatica. So if you didn't have a chance to answer the poll, you can always get in touch with us, and therefore in touch with the ConverSight team at info@swktech.com. You can, connect with your SWK account manager. They'll put you in contact with Troy, Vlad, and their team so you can learn more. So, many ways to reach us. We're happy to help you, learn more, whether it's now, whether it's a couple months from now. So thank you for taking time out of your day to be with us. Thank you to today's presenters. We hope everyone has a wonderful rest of their Thursday.
Yeah, thanks everybody. Appreciate it.
Thanks. Bye, everyone.